Hello and welcome to Montreal Rock Stories. Today we are in company of Paul Gott, one of the greatest musicians in Montreal, and I guess the godfather of punk.
more persistent than great, but yeah, okay. I'll go with great.
Paul started the Ripcordz, which is a famous Canadian band. You must know about it. They started in 1980. Paul also studied journalism at Concordia University here in Montreal, and he worked as producer for news for Global TV, CBC News, and he teaches journalism at Concordia currently. He also founded a rear guard magazine and On Guard Records as well. Um, that's it. Okay, so
It's a long and spotted career, yes.
right. So thank you for coming. How are you?
Oh, thanks for having me. Really good, actually. Back in the neighborhood where I used to work all the time, so it's kind
Right.
of fun to be back.
Great. Awesome. Um, Tell me a little bit of how do you started um interested in doing music?
Well, I guess the funniest thing about the band is I was 18 when I started the band, and I thought I was too old to start a band.
Okay.
And that was in 1980. So what? Um, I mean, okay, so I grew up in the 70s, and most of my high school was before punk was invented. So um, I was listening, it was kind of hair metal and prog rock and stuff like that. But me and my friends were listening to like 50s rock and roll music.
Yeah.
So, Elvis, but also Eddie Cochran and Johnny Burnett and the Rock and Roll Trio, and all these bands that were like just really straight ahead, three-chord rock and roll music from the 50s. Um, and so uh, when punk rock came along, to me it seemed like the natural progression from that 50s music. Somehow, to me, music had gone astray somewhere in the 60s and the 70s. I mean, yeah, there was pub rock and there was garage rock, but in general, music had got headed in the wrong directions. And it just seemed like punk found that soul of rock and roll again. Um, Actually, we tell the joke on stage that that Elvis died in 1977, so he could take the torch of rock and roll and pass it along to a bunch of snotty kids in London, New York City. But it just seemed like a natural thing for me to do, and so I loved the music. And I must admit, I was like 15 at the time. I think I liked the fact that the girls wore mini skirts and fishnet stockings. I'm pretty sure that had something to do with it. But it was just like the whole package deal. It was the style, it was the snottiness, it was the straight ahead, and it was the fact that I believed that I could actually play that music, which is probably helped.
Which are the bands that influence you to start playing?
Um, I guess when I started out, it was probably like a weird bunch of bands because communication was not the same as it is nowadays. We kind of knew punk was happening, but I'm not even sure I discovered the Clash until like 1979 or 1980. And everybody knew about the Sex Pistols because they had a pretty good press agent,
Right.
and Malcolm McLaren.
Yeah.
But it was the way I discovered punk. None of my friends were punk. So the way I discovered punk is I'd go to like this used record store called Cheap Thrills every day after school, literally every day after school. And they had all the used records, and it was like $5 to buy a record. They give you three if you sold them one. It cost you $5. So I'd go through every record bin, literally every A, B, C, like go through, and anything that looked punk, I would buy.
Oh wow.
Um, and then usually the next day I'd bring 2/3 or 3/4 of them back with me.
The ones you didn't like, didn't
They were
suit
punk, yeah.
your style.
And then I'd do it again and go through, and so that's how I discovered punk rock music. So I kind of did it very much on my own, and with bits and pieces that we'd hear. The Vibrators came to town, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to the Vibrators. But it was really hard to find the music. And Montreal did have a scene that was starting up, the Chromosomes and the 222s and stuff, but I wasn't part of that scene. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't there. I was too young to really go to those shows too. So
Mm-hmm.
I was, that's kind of on my own. And so I'd say the Vibrators were one of my big influences. The Clash, when I did discover them. Sex Pistols, I still love. For all those people who call the Sex Pistols a boy band, you have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
No, they have the attitude, which is very
Well, they
important.
have that, and they did have like a manager who was trying to be a Svengali and control them, but he did nothing except, and everybody had a manager back then, so just like shut up. So not you, them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was Gene Vincent from the 50s and the Trogs from the 60s who did Wild Thing. I was the only person. My mom was kind enough to make me a Trogs jacket when I was in
Oh,
grade school, so I was the only kid in probably North America who had a Trogs jacket going to school.
awesome.
So to me, it was like I said. To me, it didn't seem strange, the music. It didn't, like, everybody's talking, oh my, there's this new thing, this punk, and to me it was just like, okay, it's part of something, a history that I know of, like kind of underground stuff from the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
So I picked and chose, um and I also sort of, when I started writing songs, I was like thinking, okay, I don't want to be like imitating. There were so many bands that just seemed like they were imitating the tour, like the Sex Pistols and the Clash and the Damned, and no, so everybody wanted to sound like them, and they started writing songs. I just kind of looked at them, when, okay, now they're taking stuff from the 50s and 60s and they're changing it to what they wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to try and sound like the Clash or the Sex Pistols. I'm going to just steal from the same influences they're stealing
Oh,
and put a distortion pedal on it and yell into a
right.
microphone, and it should sound.
Did you have access to a guitar? Or how you started playing guitar?
I'd actually um, started playing guitar, I guess, in 1975, 76, with a friend, Rich Allard, who would teach me, and we learned, House of the Rising Sun is the first song I ever learned, which we actually did a cover of on one of our albums.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I'd started playing acoustic, and then when I wanted to form the band, I looked through the classified ads, pulled the newspaper open, went through the classifieds, and I found this guitar, a Gibson L6S, which is beautiful looking guitar. This guy had it in his basement with an amp, and he said, yeah, he bought it for his son. The son wasn't interested, and so I bought the guitar, and the case and the amp for $600. And now everybody says that's like one of the best guitars ever, and everybody's always complimenting me on my guitar
Yeah.
and how great it is, and this and that, and they talk about the pickups, and and I know absolutely nothing. I know I bring it out of the case, I plug it in, most of the time it works, and I play it, and that's all I know about guitars. But I lucked into it. It's a beautiful guitar. It's light. It's easy to play. It sounds great, and no matter, we don't bring amps with us on tour anymore. We just plug into amps wherever we are,
Right.
including the amp heads. We just like, oh, you good, just plug it. And it always sounds like my guitar. Like my guitar, it's got that, somehow it overpowers amplifiers.
Yeah, maybe the pickups or something
Yeah,
about
so
it.
now you said pickup, and I have no idea. But
Yeah.
you could be right.
Yeah. It can be. It can be. So that guitar, you still have it.
Well, okay, another anecdote. So I bought that guitar and used that um, through until 92 or 93, when we were actually practicing. There's a place, club on Saint Laurent, no, sorry, on St. Catherine, just east of Blurry. Yeah, just east of Blurry. Um, called the Rising Sun, and it was an old blues club that would also do punk shows. But they also had practice spaces, so we were practicing in there.
All right.
And one day our practice space got broken into and my guitar was stolen.
Oh man.
And so I was like, So I actually started looking, because I just wanted that guitar again.
Right.
I went to every shop in Montreal, no guitars. Went to Toronto to all the big record
Yes.
stores, no guitar. Went to New York City where they have the world's largest guitar shop, and it's just like a huge old warehouse, and they have all the guitars are on the walls, but it's so huge. There was 15 layers of guitars on the walls, like all like it just like they must have had 2,000 guitars on display, and you're just looking around, probably more. No Gibson L6S, and then finally a friend phones from from Ottawa and says, "Hey, I saw a Gibson L6S in, I think it's Songbird Music in Ottawa." I said, "Put it aside, I'll come." And so like you had them put it aside, and I actually went down and bought it, and I've had that one ever since. So it's my second Gibson L6S.
All right. Okay.
But
Gotcha.
yeah, there's always a story.
All right. And when you started then, it was here in Montreal.
Mhm.
And were there any other bands that were playing at the time?
Oh, there are a ton of bands. Like I say, there was there was the original bands like the Chromosomes, who were like they're kind of the heavier, very more anarchistic punk band. There are 222s, which was kind of more of a poppy rock and roll. Probably not. I shouldn't say poppy. That leaves the wrong impression, but kind of more rock and roll punk. And they're the American Devices, who are just they're their own thing. Experimental punk. Let's call them experimental punk. But they were originally called the Normals, evolved into the Devices, into the American Devices. But and then pretty soon there was like the second wave of bands like No Policy. They're the harder, much more sort of harder straight ahead. But this was kind of early '80s that was happening, and there was Fair Warning,
Yes.
No Policy. Um, but the funny thing was, I mean, they were all a cool band. We weren't a cool band. Like they were like really straight ahead. Very political most of the time.
Yeah.
And we were just like having fun in basements and playing parties,
Yeah.
and then by the time it really started coming out of the basement in like 1986 or '87, when we started playing real clubs as opposed to like tiny clubs, and
Which were the clubs that you played
well,
in the 80s?
well, in the '80s, there was this tiny club called The Step on Park Avenue that was about as big as this room. So yes, it was, hello bartender, hello stage. And this other place called Station 10 that did shows every night.
Yes.
Loved Station 10.
Station 10.
I'm actually kind of happy we shot our first video there. So it's like you can actually see Station 10 right in the video, in our Elvis Death Cult video. And so that was really cool because they were doing shows every night. And then, so we were playing mostly those places. There were other clubs that sort of opened and
In the
closed
90s. So right
in the '80s,
in-
like the Casbah and stuff like that. But we were never cool enough to play those shows.
Okay.
We would play Station 10 and the Step and a couple other places, and then Fufun started up because they were like the Zoo Bar before,
Right.
and then they were Fufun, but they were Fufun in kind of like a regular sized club, not what they are, not this sort of mega
In the
thing.
corner.
Not quite. Actually, more in the middle of the block. Like the door that was to Fufun is now the emergency exit next to the stage.
Okay.
There's if you look at the big stage in Fufun, you probably don't even notice it, but just to the left of it, as you're facing the stage, there's a little stairway to going down. That's the emergency exit. That used to be the main entrance, and then you'd used to come up, and where the stage is now was kind of the club. And where the bar is on the left is where the stage was, and then they flipped it around, and then
I remember that.
and so it's so we started playing for fun all we could, sort of late '80s, so probably starting around '88 or '87, '88. It would probably more like '88. We started, we basically said, look, whenever you need an opening band, we'll play. like we'll open for anybody for $50.
Mm-hmm.
Give us $50 so we can like buy some hot dogs and a couple of beers and and what's funny is we didn't have a van, so we'd have to rent a van. And the van was usually $50. But anyway, so we'd go there, and we'd open for anybody. And so we'd open for a lot of big bands like the Vibrators. Got to open for the Vibrators, Sauke Subs, and all sorts of other people. But we'd also open for Lydia Lunch, who was like a New York sort of poet, punk poet.
So an interesting mix.
Yeah, we would, like I say, and we'd always have fun. We'd always meet people, and so we just got to open for a ton of bands and see a ton of bands. And
later on, did you play like the classic clubs like the X or Café Cao?
Oh yeah, I mean, after then started. There's a Terminal Show Bar for a while in the early 90s, which is a great bar, perfect size. So we'd play there a bunch of times, put on a bunch of shows there ourselves. And then Jailhouse Rock Cafe opened up, and that was actually our roadie, was the manager of Jailhouse.
Don Castelli?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, he was our roadie for a bunch of tours in the 90s.
Oh.
And then he started up to that, and he's still a good friend. Like, so it's.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
He put up a book with all the
Jailhouse
flyers,
rock poster area. Yeah.
Yeah, it was it's an amazing book. I have it.
Yeah, no, he's and we were some of the first shows that were ever put on there. When even before it was Jailhouse, it was La Terrasse, and we played there.
Yes.
And it was La Terrasse, and did some benefits, and that became our home away from home.
Yeah,
for a long
and the Jailhouse was an amazing bar, a great club, and so much good memories from there.
Yeah,
it was a small place.
Did he tell you the story of when he got arrested for pissing against his own bar?
No.
I should probably leave that to him.
Yes, because I'm gonna interview them.
Yeah, he was in the he's in the alley behind the club, and was just, I don't know, just had to piss, so he pissed against the wall, and the cops arrested him.
Oh no.
Threw him into jail and discovered that he had parking tickets that he owed that was like
oh no.
He got sentenced to like 3 months in jail, and but then they let him out after like 36 hours, but said, "You're just taking up space, like what the fuck are you doing here?"
Okay.
Never so.
No real friends.
So happy ending in the end. So he got rid of all his debt. So but yeah, no, Jailhouse, like, it's, to me, that may have been the best club in Montreal.
Yeah.
It's just like perfect size. Everybody played, and that's where we played with By Squad and with Peter and the Test Tube Babies and with all these other great bands that would come through. But that, we played there. We played Cafe Chaos. We played Licks. Played a bunch of shows at Licks. And in the last 10 years, we've been playing mostly, the underground places at Fatale. So Fatale at Fatale, Trackside, Thrash Can. Unfortunately, which of course all got shut down about a month ago. But that's probably where we've played 90% of our shows in the last 10 years have all been at Fatale.
And when you like, let's say when the Ripcordz started, like in the 80s or beginning of 90s, you started playing in Toronto too.
Yeah, we started sort of going out of town. Like I say, we kind of crawled out of the basement around 87, 88. And then a couple of years after that, really started trying to do out of town gigs, but we didn't have a car or anything. So it was always like borrowing somebody's car, renting a car. We actually did a lot of things by bus or by train. Take the train to Toronto, which is like a lot of fun, but that just means you're guaranteed to lose money, because it costs more to take the train than it does you'll get paid for a show.
Yeah.
So we did that, and it was a lot of fun, but it was difficult until we bought our first band in 92, and that's when we really started playing tons more shows. But we did things like I organized what we called the Drunk Punk Tour in 1990, which was And it was a really simple concept, which was we'd host in Montreal. We got Random Killing from Toronto to host in Toronto. We got the Trapped, a great band from Ottawa, to host in Ottawa. We just played 3 shows, one weekend in Toronto, one weekend Montreal and Ottawa, and each band would host. And so you'd use all their equipment,
Right.
and they do all the publicity, which nowadays, exchanging shows is a lot easier because you got the internet, but also just it's more of a thing that people do. Back then, it wasn't really done, so this was kind of like a newish concept.
Mm.
Certainly for us, it was a new concept. And I think it was the first time that we got Random Killing out of Toronto to come to Montreal. Um, and so we did that. So we did that 2 years in a row, and sort of we're trying to do that as much as possible. Um,
But you touch a very important point. Like when you play live and when you play bars, it's not necessarily for the money. It is more for the music, it's more for the fun, because there's not much money to do at at a bar or playing the small places.
yeah, we always used to say, like, as you're playing, when you first starting out, like, even when we went on tour, it's like, okay, we're going to go on tour. We have no idea what we're doing. We're going to go and we'll play for like pretty much $200 a night. But it'll cost us like $100 in gas to get there, and we have to have a place to stay, and hopefully, somebody will give us a place because we can't afford a hotel room. Anyway, and bring your own, like, the band we've got a cooler full of like veggie pate and veggie chili dogs, which you'll eat cold and large tub of salsa, which fell out of the most dismal moment on tour was when we opened the door in 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 a place in Western Ontario, and the salsa fell out onto the ground, and we lost like 3 gallons of salsa. It was
Oh
the
my.
saddest moment on tour ever. Um, but yeah, but then I was like, okay, bring your own money for food and stuff because we got no money. And now we're to the point where we can go out and we can basically break even. Like, we'll put
Okay.
out, we'll we'll spend money. We'll actually probably have one nice meal a day, and then we'll get snacks and stuff like that. And we'll have a place to stay. The one thing I need now is a hotel room because I can't sleep in the basement anymore. I appreciate the offer, but my back can't take it.
Right.
So we can afford a nice place to stay, or a nice place to stay. Whenever we talk, I would say cheapest hotel in town. Like, we don't care what the hell it looks like. We're just gonna sleep.
We need a bed.
Yeah, that's it. So we've got a place to stay, place we know we can sleep, and we've got food, and we can pay for gas, and we'll get back home, and we'll still have money in our pocket. And if we make any extra money, that's when all of a sudden Ripcordz come out with a video or something, or it's like, okay, we got extra money. Because the other thing is, if you start making money with the band, now it's like, okay, so do we split this money evenly? Do we keep some on reserve? Okay,
We
does the
reinvest.
songwriter get money, get extra? Does it's just like, no, just screw that. Like, the money goes into the band. We make some extra money, and that's when we've always sort of like, we've always had these concepts. Like when we put out we wanted to get back into making vinyl about 10 years ago, and vinyl came back. It's like, yay. So I was like, how do we get back into vinyl in a big way? Maybe we should put out a dub, like a greatest hits album, like of all the stuff that, because we put out like more than a dozen albums just on CD. So now this is the way to get them onto vinyl.
There's something very interesting that you are the singer, the guitar player, but also the graphic designer for the Ripcordz.
World's slowest artist. Yeah.
But you did like the logo, and you did you did the fanzine as well. You did the posters. So how that came about?
Well, I always wanted to be an artist, and I was a very crappy artist. But when I started in university in 1980, I got involved with the Student Society and Students Association. And they were like, oh, you're a journalism student. Cool. You can put out our magazine. You can do the university handbook. You can do this. Cool. Like, so who's going to design it? And they go, you are. And I was like, oh, okay. So I had kind of give myself a crash course in design. So I started figuring out how to do design work, and
which was cut and paste at that time.
Yep. It was literally, you get loads. In fact, at one point in time, around 81 or 82, I became the manager of a typesetting company, which is where typesetting was where you enter all your stuff on the keyboard. And unlike desktop publishing, you'd send that out to a typesetting company, and you get rolls and rolls and rolls of photographic quality paper with all your type on it.
Yeah.
That somebody else had actually typed in from what you'd already typed. And it was a crazy system.
Yes.
And then you'd have to cut it. We roll it through a waxer. You paste it onto pages. Yes, which sounds incredibly convoluted. And then you have to start thinking about page numbers. You have to like cut out the page number.
Yeah, indeed.
And then take it and
you do it with an X-Acto, and it's like
X-Acto knife. Yeah.
Actually, that was my first job.
Yeah,
in a publicity agency. I was a paste up boy.
Well, that's that was my first real job. Then after that, I actually went outside the university, and I ended up owning my own typesetting company for about 10 years.
Oh, great.
So which is how kind of the record company started up, because I knew how to make record covers, and pre-desktop publishing is like nobody knew how to do that. And if you did, you had to hire somebody, and like there was nobody who could. You can talk to a friend who's like good at graphics and do it. It's like you had to have the skills and the processes to put this together. So I knew it. So I had a whole bunch of friends who wanted to put out albums. I go, well, I can do the album cover for you for free. And we'll figure out distribution. We'll call it, I have this On Guard Records thing, which was just the name back then. And there's a very long convoluted story to that one too. But anyway, I had this name for a record. So I would contact pressing plants and distribution people and say, hey, we're On Guard Records, which is a business without a bank account, but that's okay. And can you do the pressing? Can you do the distribution? They go, yes. And they would give you the record label discount, which is really about 40% less.
Wow.
Like if you were paying $1,000 to get something pressed, it would be more like $500.
What was the minimum?
Thousands, well, we'd always press at least 500.
Okay, 500. Pretty good.
For Ripcordz, you'd always do 1,000, but it was up to the bands how much, because the bands would pay for the pressing. But instead of going to a pressing place and paying $1,000, they don't have to pay $600. We get them the distribution, which they wouldn't be able to get because they're on their own. Yeah. And then 100% of the money from the distribution went to the band. So the band basically paid for everything, but they got 100% of everything that came out, which is how we had no bank account because we didn't need one.
Yeah.
And then they'd get all the connections and the cover for free. And I had a touring list that I started in the early 90s, which we used to sort of publish, but by publish, I meant photocopy and send to people. With the thought being, if there's a lot of bands going out there and touring and using the same promoters, it'll make that a healthier scene for everybody to go out and do. So,
all right. And Ripcordz had already 15 albums out.
That's where life gets complicated. I have no idea how many albums you. Depends how you count albums.
All right. Yeah. Well. Okay. Okay.
Do you count
it about 15? Let's say.
Count the. Yeah. Well, I think in total we have more like 19. But do we count the live album? Do we count the compilation? So, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're well over a dozen.
Okay. So yeah, exactly. You have more than 15 albums, about 19.
You got 2 in the last 2 years. So.
Oh, I thought it was just one in 2025.
No, we just released one now, like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you got to keep up.
Right, man.
If you turn away, the Ripcordz will release another album.
All right. So my question was, when you record those albums, And like in the beginning, did you had a studio, a proper studio where you record? There was a record company or distribution. How did it
Oh,
work?
it was really weird at the beginning because there were no real studios around, that especially for alternative or punk. So there were some recording studios, but it's really expensive. Like more expensive then than it is now with $1980. Like, so, it's still like, it was like $40 an hour or $50 an hour to rent a studio. But in $1980 as opposed to now, when you could still rent one for like 35 or something. So it's like, it was really expensive. They didn't know what they were doing. There weren't engineers. There weren't punk engineers.
Right.
There was one studio that was open, but then a band that shall remain nameless, one of our first punk bands, went in, recorded, but when they left, they took the 8-track machine with them. So, and turns out that was a Hell's Angels run recording studio, so the band quickly disbanded. Anyway, but also the studio wasn't dealing with any more punk bands at that point in time. One of the things we did is I was actually managing CRSG Radio, which is Radio Concordia, downtown at the time.
Okay.
And so we decided there was no real place to record, so we decided to make ourselves a recording studio. And what we did is, anything you do in a university, you have to go through university channels and stuff. And they have this thing called physical plant, which is basically in charge of any renovations, anything that has to be done. You need to change a light bulb, you have to phone physical plant. We didn't want to call physical plant because it cost like $100 to change a light bulb. We could imagine what it would cost to try and build a studio. So what we did is we had a room that was our record library. And so what we decided, we're going to take the record library, and there was a janitor's closet next to it. And we talked to the janitors, went, would it be okay if we took over your closet? We've got this really good idea. And they went, sure. Don't tell the university about it. So what we did is and I say we, it was other people. I was kind of managing it at the time and stuff, but it was other people who are way smarter in building engineering and sound engineering than me. Bust open the wall, basically tore down the wall into the janitor's closet to make it a bigger room. And so that then we had a good space and built like a studio where there's like an isolated voice booth and and everything, and a place for drums, and so it was like a 2-room setup and a control room with and the glass was at angles, and so it was a really nice studio. But it was just kind of funny because as we were doing it, we couldn't let the university know because
How would you did it?
So if you ever see the movie The Great Escape, the World War II film where they're digging the tunnel out of the Nazi concentration camp, and they're digging it
At night.
they dig it all the time, but what they had was they had all the soil that they had to get rid of, and they had to. So what they do is they figured out a way. They put it in their pants and a little thing, so they walk around, and it would just get left out onto the ground as they walked around the encampment. So we kind of did the same thing, but with cinder blocks. We were trying to like get rid of all these cinder blocks from the wall that we'd knocked down. And so we were like sneaking out through the back, because if security saw us, it would be done. So we're like trying to sneak out with like in bags and like, duffel things and like, and just, I can't believe that.
But all the hammering and all the construction and everything.
Well, it was the good thing was it was a student corridor. There was like a couple of lounges. There was the student newspaper was there, the Students Association. So that whole corner of that floor was just us. And everybody else knew what we were doing and thought we were crazy. And it was kept tonight, so the people above and below, the cafeteria was above. I can't remember what was below, but we were doing it at night anyway, the big stuff. So
recording and drums and everything.
Oh no! Okay. Sorry, I thought we were still talking demolition. The recording we just did all the time because we'd soundproofed it.
Oh, that well.
Yeah. It
Wow.
was. I mean, you could hear it when you were like right outside, but it wasn't like if we hadn't soundproofed it properly, it wouldn't have recorded properly. So
Right.
um, so yeah, so there were a whole bunch of bands. Actually, there's a whole bunch of albums out there from Failsafe, who are like a really cool hardcore band. They'd probably hate me calling them a hardcore band. I don't know how to describe you, Failsafe, but you're great. Ray Kondo won his Hard Rock Honors, which is like a 6-piece country cowpunk group. There were the Crawling King Snakes came from London, Ontario to record. So there were all these bands that recorded in the studio, and that was their first album was released from our studio.
So,
Same with our first album, Our Ripcordz Our Go. That was recorded in that studio in glorious 8-track stereo.
all right. And when did that studio started recording, and when did it end recording or start recording?
Probably 84. We'll be starting recording. And finished, it's hard to say. I mean, I kind of left that. So I was managing the studio, managing CRSG up until like 88, and then I was still around for a year or two after that, and then so I think it lasted until mid 90s probably.
Oh.
But I think the glory years, I'd say probably the late 80s when we recorded a ton of bands.
Okay. And the university never knew about it?
Never knew. They do now because I keep on talking about it, which is a funny story. But yeah, I think the statute of limitations is up on that one, so we're okay.
Wow. Okay. Well,
I can tell you that we were never the cool band. I kind of mentioned that a couple of times, but when we started up and when we got out of the basement, we started playing shows, we were just like, the Montreal scene was very, in the late 80s, it kind of turned into very sort of speed metal. There were a lot of crossover speed metal in town. So there's like DBC and Voivod. DBC is funny because they were supposed to be a joke band.
I didn't know that.
Dead brain cells, and they actually came out of the punk band, the Chromosomes. And who kind of said, well, let's make a funny metal band, and they came up with DBC, but people liked it so much they just kind of like ran it. I think they kind of thought it was funny that people liked it so much, and then they just kind of got into the whole sort of metal thing. But that great guys, and it was kind of fun that they did that. But it was certainly very heavier, straight ahead, and we were just kind of doing Sound of 77 punk rock. And people would kind of look at us and go, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, which is why we weren't playing the cool clubs. We weren't a hardcore band. We're just like, we're just playing some punk rock.
Which is a style that you have kept.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of evolved over the years. We did. I mean, if you listen to the first album and compare it to what we're doing now, like the basic concept is kind of the same, but yeah, the sound is, I think, really different. What we started out was, doing 3-chord punk rock, and now we do like 11-chord punk rock that we try and make sound like it's 3-chord punk rock.
Yeah, maybe it has more complexity to it.
Well, it has. We don't like to think of it as complex. It's because we have changed members over the years, and like we have one of our recent drummers, Gopal, who was who actually teaches drums and has been in a lot of different styles of bands. He says, wow, you guys do like crazy, like it doesn't sound like it when you listen to the record, but you do some crazy things on these things. Like I can't even understand what you're doing. That's what we kind of want to do, like the really unexpected thing every once in a while. So, but yeah, I mean, we still like the sort of basic driving thing. And we just do a little craziness every once in a while.
Can we say that punk base itself on the chorus? Like it's more like an anthem, like an anthem that people can relate to, and also, well, of course, the rhythm, which is in the beginning of the 80s, there was you used to pogo, to music. It was a really the dancing. You were there just jumping up and down. So yeah, basically, can we say that punk is about the chorus and then the rhythm?
Well, I think I'm not sure if all punk is all about the chorus. I mean, that's kind of like the anthemic punk rock that you want to have that sing along chorus. I must say that's something we aspire to in a lot of our songs. We really do want to have that sing along quality to it. And I kind of actually like that idea because I like to think of punk as a community. I'm
Yes.
always talking about that. And not only do you have the feeling of community when you're singing along, you can only sing along if you kind of like what's being sung. You're not going to
Mhm.
sing something if you disagree with what, like Trump is great. Like that's not going to happen.
No.
I mean, it might in some places, but that's not a show I want to go to. So it's, um, so yeah, I think there is a sense of community there, and that sing along really brings it in. Um, and and I think that's one of the things when we did a cover. See, I also think the rest of the song is more important than a lot of people think. Um, because it can't just be like, oh, I'm going to do something for 30 seconds, and now here's something really cool for the chorus. Um, when we used to do covers, and we don't have time for covers anymore. It's we got too many songs of our own. We'd always take a cover, and then we kind of make it our own. Obviously, recordize it. Distortion on the guitar, distortion on the voice, uh, and kind of so we make it our own that way.
When you were playing in the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, there were other bands playing here in Montreal. Like I just recently interviewed Pat Caron from Les Crostons. There was also the Grimmskunk and Banlieue Rouge. So what do you think of those bands in that time?
Oh, I mean, like all those guys are great. I made the logo for the Croston.
Okay, great.
Just because we happened to be playing a show together in Ireland. I got some rubber stamp lettering, and that literally was
With the bongs.
stencil. No, that was before that.
Okay.
It's just like the Croston in big capital letters with a cross and the Croston. Anyway, uh, um, but Banlieue Rouge, Banlieue Rouge were like really cool. Bringing that French from France vibe to Montreal.
Right.
And Grimmskunk, like all those bands. Grimmskunk actually happened to release something on my label, though.
Okay.
On Guard, though they didn't really need the help, but they released it on it. Mostly On Guard was trying to help bands. They didn't seem to need the help, but they put it out their single on that, which I thought was really cool to again sort of bring scenes together. So no, there are a ton of great bands, and you just mentioned three of them. There's
Yes.
Les Catalogues, which is like one of my favorite bands to play with them. We played with them as much as possible. Amnésie was like maybe my vote for perhaps one of Montreal's best bands ever. So Vagabonds, jeez, so many great bands. And the fortunate part for us is we got to play with them all.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I'm always, I always say the best thing about being in a punk rock band is you get to go to a lot of punk rock shows and hear a lot of great punk rock bands, and you don't have to pay for it because you're playing. Yeah, playing with other bands is always fun. I'm playing with, and we played with so many, and they've all been so nice. And so like it's what we always recommend to people. Go out and see the bands and talk to the bands.
Yeah.
They do want to talk to you.
Indeed, yeah. A lot of bands would love to talk to the people and then go out with the public. For me, the Moshpit was created by punks.
Yep.
You agree?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, it's used by metal, but which is great. Like share and share alike, and they've done their own versions of it. But yeah, we're definitely sort of came from pogoing at some point in time. Somebody pushed somebody who was pogoing, and then all of a sudden you had a pit. So, and actually, there have been different variations of the pit for over the years. Last year we started trying to bring back the circle pit, so we kept on doing that.
Right, okay.
especially out west. There's a couple of towns who shall remain nameless where it gets to be guys in a pit who are just trying to prove that they're really tough, and
Right.
you know, and we don't put up with that crap. Like, it's, again, think of punk rock as community. Think of the pit as cooperation, not confrontation. And so we're like, okay, have your fun. Let's do this as a circle pit as opposed to like trying to prove that you can push somebody else out of the way. That's not.
Yeah, there's always somebody who's just aggressive for being aggressive. But there's like that, I will say at least 80%. They're very nice, and if somebody falls, they pick him up.
Oh yeah,
and they continue.
Oh no, I'd say it's 95%. It's you just need one or two assholes in there to ruin it for everybody, really.
Yeah.
And in where we find that where there's shows, like one of the songs we finish with all the time is our song "Girls in the Pit," and if we're in one of those aggressive towns where they're just going to be jerks in there, say, okay, no guys in the pit for this song. This is for girls to get out there, enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
Which, when I first started saying, am I sounding condescending? But the girls, the women we talk to, very much appreciate that, and that always is full of women, that pit.
Yeah.
Like, it's never like, oh, we're not going to do that if you're going to be like so I think they understood this is for you to have your fun, and avoid those morons. And we only do that in the pits where it seems like there's a bit of a problem.
Okay, but also you wrote the song "Girls in the Pit" because there were girls in the pit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the famous thing we always say is like, Quebec, we look out and there are more girls in the pit than there are guys, and that's something we like to average. And the line I use on stage nowadays is like, and let's not forget, there's nothing sexier than the hot and sweaty punk girl who will beat the living crap out of you if you treat her wrong. So yeah, that's kind of straddling both worlds on that one.
Yeah, indeed. I want to do a couple of rapid fire questions with you.
Sure, see if I can avoid long stories.
No, great. If you can go with stories, that's amazing. So okay, we'll go with rapid fire questions. What was the first album you ever bought?
I ever bought? Well, this is embarrassing. Probably like a K-Tel disco album or something. Yeah, I'm going back into the 1970s here, which is my brain is not functioning. I'd say it's probably actually a Beatles album. But probably would have been Abbey Road.
Mm-hmm.
And then quickly, probably second, third, fourth would have been Chuck Berry's Greatest Hits, Eddie Cochran, and Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps.
What was your first punk album you bought?
First punk album I bought? Yeah, I hate to be a stereotype, but Sex Pistols.
God Save the Queen?
No, it would be the Nevermind the Bollocks.
Nevermind the Bollocks, sorry.
Yeah.
What God Save the Queen was the single.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your first show ever?
First show ever was George Thorogood and the Destroyers. I was still in high school, so it was probably 76, maybe 77. My first local show was Deja Voodoo, Monsters in My Garage 45 launch at the Zoo Bar, which would then soon turn into Fufun Electric. And I went in there, and they were just the coolest guys, and they signed my record for me. And so I still got that at home, and that was just, and that's actually started a friendship, and they're the ones who put out our first album with their OG label.
Oh.
And they supported so many great bands. And I consider myself to be very lucky. I've lucked into a lot of things, and that being my first show and meeting like the guys who will be running a label, and that's how I learned how to run my label
And help bands, because you help a lot of bands as well.
yeah.
So you
And
play
that's
that.
something that's something they've been doing before I had. And so just to met those guys and have them sort of inspire me to do what I did.
Yeah, great. What was your first show with the Ripcordz?
First show with the Ripcordz is we used to play parties and we used to have friends over
At houses.
and basements and stuff. But my first show at a club was probably 82 at Le Steppe, which is this tiny place. It's so tiny that now it's a barber shop.
Oh, wow.
Like,
where is it?
That's the size. It's on Park Avenue. If you go along Park Avenue, at some point in time, it does a little bit of a left and then a right.
Yep.
So if you're going up, it's on the right just before it does that little jog. So
wasn't the club so that
Club Soda was on the other side of the street, about a block further north.
Okay.
So yeah, it's right there. It's on the second floor. Yeah, and like I say, it's a barbershop now. It's so small that it's kind of like the big square room. Well, small square room, like with the bar and with the stage in it. So I think you could have fit like 14 people in there, including the bartender. But we played there, and that was our first show. We discovered that we had a different singer. It was actually had a keyboardist, had a lead guitar player. There's like 6 of us.
Oh.
Okay. Keyboard player was my ex-girlfriend. She just had better things to do after this. Lead guitarist, he's still a friend of mine. He still came out and played in a video we did just a couple of years ago. He's the guy who taught me how to play guitar, Rich Allard. And our singer, who is my girlfriend's brother, who we discovered had Robert Plant pretensions. And so it's just like jumping all over the stage and like, okay. So I was like, yeah. So that didn't really work out that well. So
it didn't fit.
So I started singing after that.
All right.
But yeah, so that was probably 1982 in Le Steppe, and I guess all that stuff money sort of comes out when you're on the stage as opposed to in the basement, because in the basement you're just like singing it for friends and stuff.
Yeah, which is something that I understand, or I believe that punk rock is about, is the proximity with the people. Like when you're playing live, if you have people like close to you, you're playing in a small bar, a small place or venue, then you're close to the people, which is something that is important.
Yeah, like I've often said, if we could just play punk house shows throughout the year, we'd just do that, because those are such an amazing show to play. We always tried to have like 2 or 3, and that's why I love Trash Can and Trackside and stuff, because it really felt like a punk house, even if it was.
What's your favorite band in the 80s?
Yeah, there's a Dead Kennedys. See, then I hit Rancid in the 90s, and I really loved Rancid.
Yeah.
So that would have been an easy one, even though I know a lot of people think Rancid isn't punk enough. Well, you never actually talk to them. They're really punk. Was I still... See, I've spent about 3 decades trying to stop listening to the 80s music. I got nothing for you, like, because if I was going to go with something, it would be SNFU.
SNFU, yeah.
Just trying to think if they are considered an 80s band or a 90s band.
I will say maybe more 90s Canadian punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, loved their first few albums. Like, just actually gave him an old cassette to my drummer Elliot, and he pretty like, holy fuck, and I love seeing that in other people. And I was like, okay, you've discovered something. And our bass player wasn't had never heard of Institutionalized,
Okay.
Suicidal tendencies. So you gotta listen to the song. We were making a joke about, I need a Pepsi. I go, yeah, yeah. Suicidal tendencies. Oh my God.
What's your favorite moment playing with the Ripcords?
Um, I've had so many great moments. People keep on asking me why I'm still doing this after so many years. I say, this is still fun. Like, it's always fun.
Yeah, because you can.
Yeah, and say it's meeting so many great people. It's having that girl throw up on Peter's shoes and his reaction. It's uh, it's meeting the Ramones. The Ramones were really cool.
Right.
Joya was really strange, but really nice. Playing CBGBs was like, it wasn't our biggest show or best show ever, but it was just, hey, we got to play CBGBs.
Yeah, playing that bar, that place.
Seeing Canada, like I often tell people now you could drop me out of an airplane, hopefully with a parachute, and land me somewhere, near a road somewhere in Canada. I will know where I am. Like, being across the country so many times, across the country, 17, 18 times, and into, like, let's face it, you're going to punk rock shows, you're not going to the best neighborhoods. You're seeing the real side of every city.
Exactly, it's the reality.
You're meeting the real people. You're finding your own way.
What's the weirdest place you played with the Ripcords?
There's a long list. I mean, we played a bowling alley. We played a sandwich shop. We played a ballet studio. We played Kamloops. We played a comic book store they moved all the comic racks out, but they were still so small that we had to put the t-shirt table on the sidewalk outside. We've oh my God, we played some guy's silk screening business where
Right.
anyway, he sort of moved his stuff, but there's only room for like 25 people in there in Cornwall. It's just a hot, sweaty mess. We played motorcycle club headquarters. I love playing those weird places.
Well, it's great to make people discover your music and maybe listen to a show they have never seen before in all those places. And yeah, Montreal has come with a lot of great bands, a lot of great artists. Just to name a few, is like the Blended Smashers were a really great band. I was Castelli Caffeine, actually, that too. The St. Catharines, we named the Crostons. Like, there's a lot of great bands. So that's actually good. And then some of them are still playing today, as well as the Ripcords. Thank you for still playing after 40 plus years. And well, I thank you for the interview. That was very nice for you.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thanks. And well, stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.